Okay, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. Today we've got Focus from Flomo Crew. Real pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. It's an
Yeah,
honor.
super excited. Why don't we, just get right into it. So, for anyone who might not know who you are, do you mind just doing a little bit of background, who you are, how you got into dance or hip hop or whatever? Yeah.
All right, cool. My name is Focus. The name is Jussi Sirvier, my first name, and I've been breaking since 1995. I was a young kid, 11 years old at the time, happened to go into a party and saw a circle breaking out in the audience. I didn't really know what it was, but I saw something amazing that blew my mind. And my best friend at the time, he also got into it, and he convinced me to start getting classes by one of the OGs over here in my area. He was actually teaching at my small city. He
Hmm.
would travel all the way from another city to that place and was giving out classes. So I got really fortunate because mid 90s there wasn't really much going on. I
Hmm.
think globally it was a really quiet time, and especially in my country there was really like only this one dude that was teaching.
Wow.
And that way, I used to live in a small village of 5,000 people at the time. And out of all the places, he came over there every single week to give classes. So I
Wow.
got really fortunate. And he taught me everything that he knew. And I moved on from there. Shout out to Mikko Algren, my first teacher, all the way from 1995.
Wow. Yeah. Who were some of the other people that you got exposed to when you were like learning?
Mm. Well, first of all, the people in my school was 2, 3 years older breakers that was getting busy a little bit earlier than me, 1 or 2 years, and it had been going on since like 93, 94. So I'm gonna of course drop some names, but they're not around in the breaking scene anymore. So
That's okay.
you probably don't know. There's guys like Yanni, Pasi, um, Teke, and who owns the skateboarding ranch at the moment,
Oh,
like a
nice.
ranch at the same village, but he's turned that into an actual skateboarding resort kind of place.
Wow, nice.
Shout out to Seke as well. And some of these guys, I started my first crew, Midpoint Rockers, in 1997. So I had my teacher and these guys, Yanni, Pasi, Juuso, Antti, and all these guys
Mm,
rocking with us.
nice.
And pretty quick, we started getting videotapes, VHS tapes. So we saw the movies from the 80s. We saw B Street, Wild Style, Star Wars, and such. And of course, anything that we saw over there, that was simply amazing. Like the classic battle from B Street, Rocksteady versus New York City Breakers. Everybody in that clip was simply mind blowing.
Mm,
So of course, we tried to do what we saw on tapes because there wasn't too much around. Like now you got footage all over the place, but back then you had this one precious VHS tape that you tried to rewind a million times per day and try to learn what you saw. Um, Around 96, 97, we started getting tapes from Europe. We started getting Battle of the Year tapes, and we saw, of course, 97 classic final battle between Style Elements and Southside Rockers. That was super influential. We saw a new generation, new wave of breakers that was a little bit different from the 80s old school generation. We saw Style Elements that was more creative and, or not more creative, but exploring with styles in a different way. That was super influential. And a lot of European OGs. We saw Storm, Swiftfuck, Maurizio, Evo, Freeze from Sweden, Nico from Throwdown from Sweden as well. And these guys really shaped the way that we break, second to none from the UK. And little by little, world started to open up, more footage started to pop out. We started to travel a little bit more, meet up with everybody, and learn from every single travel we go.
hmm
They were the main influences in the 90s.
So you had your original crew, but at some point you started or you got into Flomo. Which one was it?
2002 was the year that we formed Flomo. It was a time when my original crew was kind of kind of slowing down. People
Oh.
were going on to different things in life. And there was another crew in Helsinki called Savage Feet, also from the late 90s era. And the same thing was happening to them. And there was a couple of people in both crews that were passionate and really wanted to take things further, whereas the second half of the crew was directing towards different things in life. So in the 90s, we had some beef with these guys because that's what 90s was like. You saw B-boys from another city in the country, you automatically were like you were rivals with these guys. So we had some beef in the 90s, but late 90s, early 2000s, we realized, all right, there's not too many people who had the same passion, who had the same mission to be on the stages where what we saw on the state, the tapes, and see the people that we saw on videos and cipher with all of these guys and maybe even battle some of them. And so early 2000s, we decided to join forces with the left remaining members from both crews. In 2002, that was, I think, April 22nd was the day that we decided to make up a new crew and came up with a new name, Flomo, and it's been on ever since, 20 years plus.
Where did that name come from, by the way?
Flomo, we had a meeting that day and everybody was instructed to think about their own personal suggestions for the name for the crew. Everybody had their own versions. I remember Antopio, he had Cypher Spirit. That was one of the names that he suggested. That was one of the top um, contenders for the name. I was feeling the name Focus already at the time, so I suggested Focus Crew. I wasn't calling myself Focus back then, and I was just going by my first name, Jussi. And when traveling, everybody's like, Jussi, what? How do you write it? What's that? Like, what does it mean? It didn't work. But I suggested to the crew to be the focus crew, and everybody's like, nah, it doesn't sound right. It's too abstract. It doesn't make sense. So I just kept the name for myself. And then Vortex, he had the final idea. It's like, I got one more idea, and it's not going to be Cypher Spirit. Then I got this idea of flow motion, like this, not slow motion. Every time we break, we always have a great flow, and that's the way we move. So like everybody was immediately like, hey, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We started as flow motion and put it in short as flow mo.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at it ever since.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good name.
Yeah, it's got a good vibe to it. It
Mm-hmm.
has kind of like a word play and a meaning behind it too. So it's not just a random name, but it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That's important, right? Um, can you talk a little bit about uh, like you? When I think of Flomo, there's a lot of people, but two of the people, the most like prominent names that come to my head when I think of the crew is you and Hot Solo. And for a while, maybe even still, like it was you two were kind of traveling around. It was always like the duo. There's always some kind of duos that appear out of different crews. There was like Crumbs and Remind, and so on, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about like maybe that time of you guys like traveling around representing the crew?
Yeah, the duos, man. Crumbs and Remind, Storm and Swift,
Yeah.
and Kenny and Lex at one point. It's always about the duos. Somehow, the duos somehow Batman and Robin, they
Yeah.
complement each other in a
Yeah.
way that they push more out from each other and
Mm-hmm.
boost feed each other's energy. So I think the first battle we did as a duo was no, we did some battles before, but the biggest important first battle we did was Circle Kings '05 when when Amjad he was throwing it the first time he threw Circle Kings, and he sent me an invite and he wanted first off for me to battle with Atta, and Atta was already kind of drifting out from Flomo at the time, so I said like, all right, let's battle with Hat Solo. We have a great connection. We come from the same city. We train together. Most of the time it was like us two first at the spot and last one to leave, and often just by ourselves too. So we were putting in mad work
Mm-hmm.
and working mad hard to up our skills. So it made sense to battle together, and ever since then, like that was a successful year. We beat up a lot of heavy hitters. There was like Meno and Cisco in the semis, and
Mm.
Rocksteady in the final with Technique and Luigi, and people back home didn't believe us when we gave them a call after the battle. Like we just beat up Rocksteady in the final, and
Yeah.
at the time that didn't happen. Like you had a
Mm-hmm.
U.S. crew that was invited to battle in Europe, then most of the times the US crew won, nevertheless.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on the rep and based on the skills. Of course, there was a lot of skills, but the
Mm-hmm.
US crew coming out to the Europe then was like an automatic win. So us taking out that crew in that battle was a big thing for us, and it was a big change and a big shift for Finland as well. So we started winning battles, and the people started winning battles, and it was a big year. So of course, after winning that battle, we started battling more with that solo, and then anywhere there was a 2-on-2, we went, and every time we just didn't do the competition, but we also killed the circles on another level. So I guess that was the way that we built our rep as a duo.
Yeah.
A lot of the noise was made in the circles too. Like a lot of people just came in and did the competition and that's it. But we were freaking making noise and destroying circles everywhere we went.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe can you talk a little bit about that aspect of things that yeah, just you have the competition, but there's also ciphers and maybe the importance of that.
Of course, competition is important. I love competitions myself, and I feel it's an important part. But now it's treated as often as it's the only part of breaking, which is not true. There's so much more to it. There's a lot that breaking has to offer for everybody, and not everybody has to be a person who goes into competitions and wins competitions in order to be part of the scene. You can promote events, you can be a great teacher, you can have a fly fashion and
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And of course, ciphers is a big part of the culture and big part of keeping things alive. So I felt it was stronger early 2000s up to like 2010s. It was a stronger part of the scene that it is now. Of course, we can still see it, but now with the age of Instagram and big stage battles, I think the main concentration is in the competition right now. So of course, there's the underground scene, which is beautiful. I think right now there are dope things going on in the underground as well. It's not just the big stages and Olympics that's coming up. There's beautiful things happening in the scene where the whole culture is more at focus, where there's more emphasis on ciphers and more emphasis on different things than just the competitions. But yep, ciphers, big part of the whole thing, of course. And if you're not rocking ciphers, then you're missing a big piece of the puzzle.
I know like you've talked about that and other things a lot on like your sort of YouTube series that you have, the knowledge drop. And yeah, I'm kind of curious about that too. Like how did that kind of come about?
The knowledge drop, yeah. So I've been running the dojo, People and Bigger Dojo since 2015, so it's about 7 years by now. We started off with just providing courses for people who want to learn, but wanted to create something that keeps people engaged and is value for people who are not just part of the courses, but the whole scene in general. So there's different aspects to the knowledge drop. There's giving people inspiration, knowledge, and value, but of course, recording some of the experiences that I've gone through within my nearly 30 years of the dance.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like hip hop is breaking is a lot about oral stories. Like you hear stories here and there, but if a pioneer or a person who's been in the scene for a long time disappears, then all the stories disappear over there as well. We don't have too many books. We don't have too many programs like that. We don't have too much education in the school system yet. There is some, but not too much. So the knowledge drop is just my way of recording and passing on everything I've learned within my nearly 30 years of the dance. And still on it, been rocking a weekly knowledge drop video almost for 3 years now, I think. And there's a lot to discuss within the scene, not just the competition, not just the battles, but there's so
Mm-hmm.
much more that we can build on, like running a business, what's it like, and how to again support your mental health in the competitive scene that we live in, and there's so many different aspects to it. So still got more work to be done, not done yet.
Yeah, you cover a lot of different topics. It's really good. I think that more people need to do that, and more people need to, yeah, just like you said, record their own history and their own experiences and stuff and share it. That's how like the community grows, right? It's this kind of base knowledge that everyone has, and you pass that on, and everyone has that same. We talk about foundation of moves and stuff too, but foundation of knowledge is another important thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
People say the fifth element of hip hop. And it's surprising like how many people you can reach online
Hmm.
versus when you would have to travel in the past. Of course, it's still part of it, but like whenever I travel now, I see people who follow what we do with the dojo, and there's like our biggest audience is in India and
Yeah, it's a big
Mexico and
audience there.
Pakistan is tuning in heavy.
Mm.
And whenever I was in China before the pandemic hit, it was like people translating the videos to Chinese and a big audience over there too. So it's crazy how global we can get. Like
Yeah.
you don't always realize it on the daily grind. You're like, all right, let's push another video out. But
Hmm.
suddenly it's like, all right, here's the Chinese translation of it. You're like, what?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Do you know how many languages have you like translated these things into?
About the knowledge drop, I don't know to be honest. There were some people translating it to Spanish, some people for Chinese, but that's all I know for sure right now.
Right.
Some of the courses that we do, we translated to, I think, 7 languages.
Wow, that's crazy.
We have like Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, Estonian,
Wow.
Finnish, English, of course, French. I guess that's it.
Um, yeah, you're one of the, I don't know if it's few, maybe. Seems to me like one of the few people that's really embraced the, online technology and the things that are available to us. And fairly early on, you said you've been doing the b-boy b-girl dojo for 7 years, was it?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, yeah, just how that came about and your experiences with that?
Sure. 2015, when the dojo was released in the springtime, there wasn't too much around. Like I saw different platforms on different fields. Fitness was big on online education, right? You could buy a personal trainer course in any country or any city, whatever. Then I was taking part in the DJ school by DJ Qbert at the time. DJ Qbert Scratch University was already on at the time, so I was learning how to scratch from Qbert. And from there, the idea came like, all right, let's make one for breakers because we didn't see any platforms like that for breakers at the time. There was like a couple of clips on YouTube and some old DVDs and VHS tapes that had instructional material, but that's it. There wasn't any more. Of course, now there's more, but at the time there wasn't any. So with AT at the time, we decided to put the platform together, wrote the script, put all the savings at the time into it to make it happen, and hired a company to make the platform. Hired a videographer and a person to do the edits, and yeah, it was a big step, big risk, of course, but 7 years it's been on it. Ups and downs. Um, of course, once the lockdowns hit, then everybody was saying like you guys are ahead of the time because you're already set up. That's when everybody started making platforms because they couldn't travel. So that was a good advantage for me as well that we've been on it for a lot of years before the world got closed. But yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. Like the first idea was like, all right, let's make a online course and make it automated so that you can just let it run by itself and chill at
Right.
the beach somewhere in Hawaii or whatever. That's not the case. You
Yeah.
gotta work with it every single day, and people don't realize how much work goes into it. Easy to criticize, but when you're not there and doing the grind, then
Yeah.
whole other story to see just the end result. Like it's like an iceberg we're floating in a sea,
Right.
right? You see the tip, you're like, ah, that's a shitty tip, but you don't see the whole iceberg under the water, the whole workload that puts into it, of the stress and the hours and the investment of time and money that goes into it. It's
Hmm.
somehow so overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's been a rewarding trip and a fulfilling trip at the same time, like meeting up with so many incredible people from all around the world and bringing people together, being able to inspire and being able to connect people who inspire each other. That's been the trip
Hmm.
that's been going on for 7 years, and even though it's been a lot of stress, it's also been a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. That it's not just purely like online lessons, right? You do have ways for people to connect with each other and build with each other. There's like a community aspect to it, right?
There's definitely a community aspect. First of all, there's like two communities. There's a community of people who are part of the courses who connect. We run the courses in a way that we run them together as a group.
Mm.
So we get on group calls and vibe out and give out people some tasks. And some of the courses have exams at the end of the course, such as the teacher education course, for example, where we train people on how to teach breaking. After the 6 months, they have done all the research and studying. They get back together for the exam, and if they pass, then they can say like, all right, I passed the course.
Hmm.
But also outside of the paid courses, the dojo has become to form a community of people simply working on their skills and get inspired by each other. So there's often different kind of challenges we push out, and we did a footwork battle last year that gathered like 200 people from all around the world, and
Hmm.
we did like a fitness challenge for 14 days, 2 week fitness challenge for New Year's
Nice.
of how to take your training to another level besides on everything besides breaking. Like
Hmm.
everybody know they're breaking already, but if you want to train at a high level, then you need to know so many different things. How to take care of your body, how to condition, how to build strength, speed, and stamina, how to recover with your rest and such. We did like a 2 week exam or like a challenge for these kind of aspects, and that was massive, massive. I think it gathered 900 people from all around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but there's
Yeah.
many
Oh,
aspects to
good.
it, not just building courses.
Yeah. Well, I think that that kind of stuff is great. I saw like Arc, my buddy Arc from Hawaii. He took the teacher's course and learned like certification and stuff like that. And I think that kind of stuff is really good. Like having things set up that people can really like prove that, hey, I know I have this knowledge. It's not just like, you can say that you have it, but do you actually have it, right? That kind of thing. It's like, now I've actually gone through the steps to do this. This is you guys have a good reputation now at this point of being a pretty legit place or a legit
Yeah,
source of knowledge and stuff. Yeah.
and that came out of a need too, like a need that we have in the scene. Like for example, myself when I moved to Helsinki, 2006. I'm trying to apply to all these dance schools, and everybody's saying like you don't have a degree in teaching dance, and you don't have a paper to prove your expertise, and without the paper, most of the people didn't accept me, and some people who hired me, they ended up paying me a shitty salary compared to the other teachers because of the lack of education, even
Hmm.
though my CV was completely on another level than most of the teachers on the schools.
Right.
Nobody competed outside of the country as much as I did already back then. So that was frustrating, and also because of that, we started the course for teachers and ended up bringing different generations of people together to be on the course as instructors and giving out the certificate of passing the course. And as a result, a lot of people who have been through it have told us that they have been actually been able to raise their salary on their current position, which is great.
Hmm.
Like show their boss, like I've been working on my education, so based on this, you need to pay me more. And
Yeah.
that's been happening. That's been happening to a lot of people. And
Yeah.
also some people have gotten hired because of the paper that they got out of the course, even though
Hmm.
it's not government backed, an independent course, but so are many others, like personal trainer courses, for example. So it's been also very, very helpful for a lot of people in the scene, and that's been a joy to witness.
Yeah, sometimes it's really just like, yeah, you say like because of this piece of paper they can do stuff, but it's true a lot of times. Like you get that education or you get that thing that certifies you as some knowledge not expert, but someone who has this knowledge, right? It can really do things sometimes, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Education is shifting,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the universities are in crisis too, because you can basically learn anything
Yeah.
with your individual studies right now anywhere in the world. So what is a piece of paper from an institution? You can learn from all of the best in all different fields right now by yourself if you want. So you can build your skill as it like a skill set to a grandmaster level on any field right now if you
Mm-hmm.
want. I
Yeah.
can become a top level coder online if I want or whatever it is. I think that's a beautiful thing too. Like I think at this point the knowledge that you gain is what matters, not only the proof that you get from an institution.
Yeah,
That doesn't
exactly.
necessarily make sense. Your work speaks for yourself and your experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is the way that it should be.
Yeah. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember seeing somewhere that you did like a some kind of an art business degree or something like that. Is
Hmm.
that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened was I dropped out of university. I got into university for a brief moment. 2003 was the year. Yeah, I think so. So once I finished college, I graduated from there, and at that time when you're 20 years old, you don't really know what you want to do in life. All I wanted to do was break, and of course, my parents were saying like, you need to get an education. We support your dance, but you need an education to have a plan B, something to fall back on. So I got into university for computer science networks
Oh
and
wow.
such. That was the only place that I got into, and of course, that wasn't for me. That was not what I wanted to do, really. So in a couple of months, it was already clear, like, all right, I'm out, I'm done. That's all I was always telling me about that one breaking session when I came to the training and threw my backpack in the corner. It's like, fuck that. I'm dropping off. Now it's time to break. Let's battle. But of course, I didn't want to make my parents unhappy. I promised to them, like, all right, I'm going to drop off now, but I'm going to get my education one day.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. So I took off, I think 7 years, just being straight, um, breaking related 24/7 kind of thing, just battle toward and whatever. But I always knew that I'm going to go back to school whenever I have like a more clear vision of what is it that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this education called the Arts Management or Culture Management over here, University of Applied Sciences. I, I applied in and they accepted me, so started working over there. And I think 2014 was the year that I graduated. 3.5 years of school over there. But they teach you about how to work on the borderline of culture and arts and business, how to um, put everything together in a way that works. They just taught you about how to approach companies, how to apply for grants and such, and also how to work on like Excel and whatever, do budgets and stuff, which has been highly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that was something that I was most glad about was that I could do some of my things and get points from my school for throwing events or attending a graffiti workshop or taking DJ lessons in Helsinki or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the people in the office, they were always laughing at me when I came in the door. I'm like, all right, listen up, guys. I got a great idea. There's this DJ workshop I'm gonna take, and you guys are gonna give me give me some compensation for it. Like, all right, make it part of my studies.
Yeah. Yeah, why not
Yeah,
though, right?
exactly. And as a person who runs events, who organizes, promotes events, you need to understand what are the needs of a DJ that you book. You need to have your two turntables, and they have to be Technics 1200s or something similar. You have to have a proper mixer, Rain or Pioneer or whatever, and how to set it together. You don't have to hire other people do it. Like you can handle it yourself. Is again your level of expertise goes to another level. So important things. Yep.
Yeah, back to education, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm happy I do have an education and I do have a paper. So in case some doesn't work and I get overstressed or bored of breaking, then I can always run festivals of different fields. I can throw an art exhibition or rock concert. I know the skills, the same skill set,
Yeah,
but I can
yeah,
just use it in a different way.
yeah. That's a really important point too. That no matter what you do, whatever you get educated in, there's a lot of things that'll transfer into different areas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about breaking and hip hop that we learn so many universal skills over here that you can apply with anything else if you are open for anything outside of the breaking field. So you learn life skills with your battles and travels and
Yeah.
throwing jams and
Yeah, for sure.
interacting, networking with people. You can apply all of that stuff to everything else outside of breaking too. So it's not
Um,
just competition related eventually.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, just speaking of, getting education and learning things and whatnot, a big theme recently that's come up in a lot of these interviews is the idea of mentorship and just passing on that knowledge or helping to guide future generations and help them navigate these things in their own way with the knowledge that you have. And I know, well, I'm not sure. Are you still running a dance school? Is that still operational?
hmm For
Mm-hmm.
12 years,
Mm-hmm.
we've been running
Mm-hmm.
Cypher Studio in Helsinki, and it's still operational.
Mm-hmm.
And I also work as the head coach for the Finnish
Right.
Breaking Team Finland, aiming to compete in Paris 2024.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? Oh,
Mentorship.
yeah, mentorship.
Yeah, I think everybody should have a mentor or a coach or whatever you want to call it. And different stages in my life, I've always had mentors when it comes to my first teacher or it comes to my kung fu teacher or wasn't really a teacher, it was more of a coach who who trained me on kung fu, mixed martial arts, and also working out and working for my strength and stamina. To later working with Petri, who's like a physical coach or like more on the strength and stamina endurance level. To working with Ziri, who's been coaching me on online business from Belgium, and I think everybody should have a coach, whatever your passion is. There's a person who has done it before you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel yourself. And that's my tip for anybody watching this. Like whatever is your passion, find somebody who's done it before you and ask for guidance. And it can make your road so much easier. We don't have to do everything ourselves. No man's an island.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah. So we talked, yeah, a little bit about mentorship in the school, but I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about, I know, you know, there's maybe some secrets that you don't want to share and keep the knowledge a little bit hidden, but can you talk about, yeah, just coaching for the Finnish team as much as you can?
Okay. That's another interesting process that we've been working with. Um, Once the announcements came through that breaking is going to be featured in Paris 2024, that was already the time when we over here were like, all right, we got to start working towards it. Like that's a train that you don't want to miss. You want to get a head start because everybody's going to be working hard to be there and get ready. So I know things often take time, like with associations, with federation, there's a lot of bureaucracy that you need to work. work with, and it's sometimes frustrating because it takes so long. So me and Petri Rosanen from Training for Warriors Helsinki, we put our heads together and talked with the Finnish Breaking Association, and we're like, all right, we're gonna start making camps. We're gonna start the first camps, and we're gonna start building a coaching team of coaches to support people going to wanting to compete in Paris later on. So pretty quick, we had our first camps, and we had a team of coaches of me and Petri, and then Ludo as and an additional breaking coach. We had Mikko Oxman, who's a doctor. He used to be a doctor for the karate team over here in Finland, and he used to come to my classes at the time, and he was like, "All right, I want to be part of this as well." So suddenly we have a doctor in the team. We have
Nice.
Teemo, who's a physiotherapist slash naturopath. So all these different aspects. Some to another physical coach to work on their endurance and strength levels too. So suddenly we have like seven coaches for the team, and the team is set together. There's eight people in the team, four guys and four girls, and suddenly there's like a structure on how to coach breakers for the high level battles. So that's been dope. We've been making camps between 3 months over here, and between the time my studio and Training for Warriors, we provide places for practice for the team and different kind of guidance along the way. So that's been a great trip. And yeah, also another shift of how to coach breaking on a top level because it's different than teaching a weekly class or
Hmm.
teaching a workshop. In a workshop, you try to give out as many principles and as many concepts and ideas as possible. But if you want to coach somebody on a long term, it's a different kind of process. It's more about how to adjust what they already know into a more polished and a higher level, um, how do you say, entity or whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, that's another shift of perspective on teaching as well. You can be a great teacher at weekly classes, but it doesn't make you a great coach or it doesn't make you a great workshop teacher, for example. So
True.
it's still an ongoing process, of course, still a new thing. And I've been lucky to work with different countries as well. I've been coaching the breakers in Norway,
Mm.
aiming for Paris, some in Belgium, and I'm going to Poland next month to teach their team, and I'm going to Croatia to coach their new teams aiming for Paris and the Olympics. So learning as we go. It's been an inspiration journey this far.
Yeah, that's another good point too. That you can learn these skills and in the dance and the moves and connection with the music and stuff like that. There's so much to learn, but even outside of that, there's things like learning how to coach, learning how to teach, how to judge, all these things that, and they're different skill sets too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah. Um, and even yeah, that's just mentoring someone and coaching someone are kind of different too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And becoming a coach is a great skill to have.
Hmm.
Whether you're a b-boy or not, it's like a something that can help you in life in general.
Hmm.
Whether it's your business, whether it's your relationship, so that you are more open to listen and
Hmm.
give advice and help people.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that can give you joy along the way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been an interesting trip this far.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about just carrying on the tradition, and when we're talking again about passing on knowledge, and I've seen just things with your crews like anniversary and things like that, and just the people that you choose. Like I think you had Scheme Richards come out. He's another guy who's really a big proponent of carrying on tradition and passing on this knowledge and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that with maybe regards to your crew and just what you do too?
So yeah, when my crew started to come up, I guess we were lucky in a way that we didn't have the current scene or the current generation around us. So we had to look for the older generation for inspiration. So in that way, we were lucky that we had a lot of respect for other generations of the dance as well, not just the current one, and that shaped our understanding of the dance in a way that we will search for knowledge from different generations as well, and of course give props and respect for the people who did it before us. And I guess I guess somehow that shaped our style to be a little bit more traditional too, not just looking at what makes it in competition these days, but looking for a broader perspective and looking for a timeless style instead of what's hot right now. And that shaped the whole image and the philosophy of promo in a way that um, somehow our approach has always been about foundation and about originality and how to put that together with a great understanding of culture and musicality and all that. And I guess somehow it can be seen in all of the things that we do, whether it's the anniversary, whether it's the way that we promote our or like put together our cool prints or whatever it is. There's always like a wider perspective of tradition, not just what's hot right now. And hopefully that inspires people in the events that we do, for example, so that there's certain values in the events that are appreciated, such as having more circle times or having the qualifiers in the circle in a way that there's more space for anything outside of anything outside of the basic competition too. There's value in the after party. So we put a lot of effort into making that one of the best pieces of the weekend. For example, last time around there was a uh, album release party of Funky Sound Foundation, an 11-person punk band over here in Helsinki, and that was the after party of the event. So somehow that brought everybody together, and the band was really close to the audience. So there was no big stage. It was like in the middle of the people of a packed small club. And that was really the best part of the whole weekend. That after party was crazy. Everybody was just bugging out. And you could literally just feel the sweat from the drummer when he was banging the drums and rocking the breaks on the front row. So such a great night, and literally the best part of the whole weekend was the after party. So we tried to keep it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said before, and I would totally agree that competitions, they have their own good points and things that people like about them. But for me personally, the best experiences that I've had were these things outside of the competition, whether it was in a circle or the after party or just randomly, like after the jam ended and you're like out on the street or something like that. Who knows, right? But some of these things that just kind of spontaneously happen, or things where everyone can still dance, because like most people don't end up making it past prelims in the grand scheme of things, right? So having things
Hmm.
that people can enjoy still, circles, after party is another good example, like you said. And that live energy of a live band, there's something that you can't match with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and breaking is for everybody. This culture is for everybody. So
Hmm.
why not address everybody in the audience, not just the people who make it past prelims and be in the top two finalists?
Yeah, true,
That
man.
excludes so many people in the whole thing. So
Yeah.
if you throw an event, then think about everybody who's walking in through that door.
Hmm. Maybe can you talk a little bit about where you see, like, where can the breaking community improve? Like, what are some of the points that you see that we can take this further or something like that?
Hmm. I think level is really high in everything right now. The competition level is crazy. It's just getting higher and higher before, like once we're moving closer to the big competitions. I think underground events are beautiful and dope. Somehow, what we can improve on breaking, I think, is working together in different fields of the culture. So that it's not just a competition over here. It's not just the underground event over here. How do we work together and embrace the whole beautiful thing that we have and bring everybody together? And it's hard when there's egos big prize money and careers on the line in that way. I think we need more events that bring all the different aspects of the dance somehow together and bring the community together on a deeper level. So I guess that's something that we can build on and improve on. That's the first thing that comes to my mind right now. Just
Yeah.
becoming like a community again and have a stronger sense of unity,
Hmm.
even though stakes are higher year after year on the high level competitions.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about everything else.
Hmm. Yeah. There's always been sort of it's kind of human nature to divide into these camps sometimes of this or that or this is better than that, but it's also a big part of humans is collaborating and working together and finding some greater unifying thing that brings people together. So yeah, and but I know like the pandemic, the last few years, how many years is it now? I don't even remember.
Losing
At least
count.
yeah, right. But that that was tough on a lot of people, and a lot of things were in question and things like that. But where it seems like things are sort of moving out of that, and yeah, it's a bright future for sure.
We're getting back there, absolutely.
Hmm.
And you can see this running the studio too is like we're not yet where we were in 2019, but
Hmm.
the direction is definitely going that way. And it's so much fun to see the joy in people's eyes when they walk out of the studio after a great class. It's like that's why we do this. Like we are bettering people's lives with this work, and that's the same with events too. Like now, after 2, 3 years into the pandemic, you see an ill jam and everybody just bugging out and
Yeah,
getting together and having memorable times. Then that's nothing can top that really. That's an amazing feel.
yeah, for sure. Um, I guess the last thing that I think maybe we have to talk about, just because it's focus, and I think we have to talk a little bit about focus and footwork, and maybe yeah, just I know you've probably mentioned this a lot, but just for these people that are listening and watching, to give people a clearer idea of what is footwork to focus.
Okay, what is footwork to focus? Well, first of all, whenever I got into the dance, I always wanted to be an all-rounded breaker, not just emphasize or just be about one thing. And that's still true. I consider myself a b-boy, not a specialist like that.
Hmm.
There's times when I love rocking my tops only, or there's times when I love just getting into power or whatever, just creating new stuff. But naturally, people started to recognize me for my footwork, which is funny because a couple of years earlier than that, people would diss me for my footwork. I would go to events and people in the capital in Helsinki were like, "Yo, your power is all right, but your footwork is whack, man. The tops, nah, but your footwork, you need to gotta work on that one." So I guess that was also something that stuck to my mind. Like I'm gonna prove these guys. Like I'm gonna go back to the lab and work my ass off. So I can show them like I got some footwork, guys. So that started to go into me entering some footwork battles and making a couple of titles and eventually just working hard at having an ill form and having an ill flow and having the connection with the music on the ground level too and being creative without losing the form. And that's a difficult thing to have, like having an ill form but still look like yourself and create recreate some of the stuff that you have learned from the generations before you, and that's where you got to put in a lot of work. It's easy to be creative, but to maintain that form and still look like you, that's a hard thing to do. So I think that's in breaking, that's what takes the most amount of time if you want to take that route. You got to drill and drill and drill in order to make it polished in a way, but you don't want to be too technical, still organic and still funky, but that balance is hard to find. And I guess that's where I spent a lot of time in the lab and I guess it paid off. A lot of people recognize me for my footwork and it's been dope. And it's been great to battle some of the people that I looked up to in the past. Like been amazing to battle T-Rock, for example, or get to battle guys like Camel and Casper in the States and learn from them. Like getting smoked by these guys and going back to the lab again. It's like, fuck, we lost that battle. What can we do better? So the next time around, we don't lose anymore. Yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure. Like being all rounder is always kind of the goal, I think, for a lot of people. But yeah, with things like footwork specific battles and top rock specific battles and things like that, it's always interesting because like sometimes that line of like, okay, well, where does it start becoming footwork, and then this is like not footwork and this kind of thing. And a lot of times it depends on the judge and who's judging the competition, their sort of their line where they draw that line of this is it isn't footwork, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think because of that dilemma that not everybody's on the same line, and also people entering the competition might have a different understanding of footwork than the people who are judging, and that's where the conflict happens.
Yeah.
That's why when IBE gave me the title after I won it 3 times, they gave me the title for Focus on Footwork Battle for a couple of years, and we worked on how I was thinking about how can we educate the people who's entering to get everybody on the same page of what is expected and what does it make in order to what does it take in order to make it in the competition. Didn't want to set any rules because at the same time breaking is creative and open. But I worked on some guidelines so that people who are entering they might at least understand why they didn't make it through the prelims. Like if you
Right.
spent half of your round doing flares and back rocks, then not doing that much footwork. So there might be a reason to it.
Yeah.
So I wrote out the guidelines and we promoted them in a way that everybody who's entering the competition, that at least they know that we expect them to master different styles and they have a great connection with the music and work on their form in order to make it through the prelims and maybe be in the top 8, top 4, maybe even in the finals.
Yeah, I think I remember it might have been you, but I think you were talking about things like, what is a thread of footwork, or is this, you sit on your butt or something like that. And I think it was you. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned something like, yeah, it's okay to do a thread as long as it's like the base is footwork. You're using it as a transition within footwork or something, and you're not just sitting there and just threading or something like that, right?
For sure. In breaking, it's never what you do, but how it's done. So it goes
Hmm.
for this one too. Like if the context is footwork, then basically you can add pretty much anything into it if you keep that context footwork based, right? Rocks Ride's elbow six step is a great example. People say that you cannot be on your back in a footwork battle, but then Rocks Ride comes in and he does an elbow six step where he uses only one arm and an elbow instead of this. So he's still doing a six step. He drops on his elbow and slightly on his back on every single round, but it's still a six step. So how can you say that's not footwork if you just like to put things into a box? There's a lot of gray area, right?
Yeah.
But naturally, I wouldn't go into a footwork battle and rock just back rocks in a footwork round. That's not a footwork, right?
Yeah.
There's not footwork like that, but it's the way that you put things together and how you do it. That's everything that matters.
Yeah. I think that's a great point too. That you, when you were coming up with these guidelines, you don't want to box people too far in. It's got to be open enough that people have freedom to express, but closed enough that it still looks like the thing that it's supposed to kind of be, right? Yeah.
Exactly. You said it
Yeah.
well. Yes.
Yeah. That's the hard part about judging too, in general, with something like breaking, because you're talking with people like say Renegade and Storm, and people who are really pushing this, like judging, getting it straight, and how are we doing this kind of thing, especially with the Olympics coming up. um, that's a really difficult thing to navigate, is how much do you constrain it and how much do you leave it open, and that kind of thing. So
It's
it's
that same
yeah.
balance. How do you master the gray area?
Yeah.
How do you make sense into it?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
everybody has a different perspective. So how do we
Hmm.
find a common consensus of how breaking should be judged? So that's a long route. to make, and luckily they've been on it for I don't know how long,
Long time.
creating what's happening right now. I think 12 years with the Trivium or something like this. And I think educating judges is a beautiful thing. At least there is a conversation and an open conversation about how breaking should be judged.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, all right, here's a judge. Sit on the bench and throw your arm one direction or fall asleep or throw a tie. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. It's a similar thing too with like, well, how much do you talk about it and dissect it, and how much do you kind of like? Because some people were like, oh, you just feel it or something like that, and to an extent that's kind of true, but also it's I think it's important to discuss these things like how do you judge, how do you teach, how do you the importance of mentorship and what is and isn't breaking, and just have that open discussion. It's better to have it than to keep it sort of, what do you call it, like hidden under the rug and no one talks about it, but everyone's kind of worrying about it or wondering about it, or
Yes, indeed. So that discussion is only going to up the level what we have, whether it's judging, whether it's teaching, whether it's battling or whatever it is, whether it's throwing events, as long as we are building on it, then the level of skills is going to rise. And that's a great thing to have on all different fields.
yeah, for sure. um I think we're going to cut it there for now, and maybe sometime in the future we'll revisit this conversation. But thank you so much, Focus, for just taking the time to do this. Do you have any last words or shout outs or anything that you want to do before we sign off?
First of all, thank you, man. Thank you for inviting me. It was a great
Hmm.
talk, and shout out to everybody in the scene for putting in their work, not just expecting the results, but putting in the work on their behalf as well. Be on the lookout for Cypherspace. I'm working on a social media platform for breakers that's hopefully going to be available in the first quarter of 23. If everything goes right, fingers crossed. Got a
Nice.
great team, and we are working towards getting it ready. So be on the lookout for that one, and hope to see you in jam soon. It's a small world, so I'll see you in the ciphers.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Focus. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, peace.